If you're a Talking Cars fan and want to see the Consumer Reports test track in person, here's your chance. On October 17th, Consumer Reports is hosting a 5K run and walk fundraiser here at our Auto Test Center in Colchester, Connecticut. It's a fun way to get outside, see the cars we talk about every week, and support our mission all at once. And if you can't join us in person, there's a virtual option too. Go to cr.org/5K to learn more and register.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode. I'm Mike Monticello.
I'm Stef Schrader.
And I'm Ryan Pszczolkowski.
So we have a really interesting vehicle to talk about this week, and that is the 2026 Ineos Grenadier. So three things to know about this vehicle right off the bat. First, it's only been on sale globally since 2023, so this is still very much a new company and a new vehicle. The second thing is Ineos says it was designed to be the best vehicle in the world at under 5 miles per hour. So that means off-roading is what this vehicle is all about, right? So we're going to get into that. And the third thing is it uses a BMW powertrain, which is kind of unique, for an off-road vehicle. So it's a 3-liter turbocharged inline-six, BMW's very famous engine, right? 282 horsepower, 332 pound-feet of torque, 8-speed automatic transmission, permanent 4-wheel drive. We borrowed one from Ineos. At this point, we don't have any plans to buy one, so this is going to be our only time to drive this vehicle. We'll see what happens down the road. But the one we borrowed, they have, this one's called a station wagon. They also have what they call a quartermaster. It's more like a pickup truck.
Kind of looks like a Gladiator, a Jeep
It
Gladiator.
does kind of look like a Jeep Gladiator, yeah. So we borrowed the station wagon, which starts at $71,750, but the Fieldmaster trim or version, whatever that we borrowed, with a fair amount of options, plus the $1,995 destination charge, costs $89,555. So not a cheap vehicle by any stretch of the imagination. But before we get into what this thing is like to drive, and we're going to get all into that, Steph, tell us a little bit about the backstory on this vehicle, because the backstory is almost as interesting as the vehicle itself, wouldn't you say?
It might be the most British thing of all time. It came out of a conversation in a pub. The head of Ineos petrochemical company, Jim Ratcliffe, decided that the new Land Rover Defender had gone soft. It was too posh. It was not hardcore utilitarian enough for kind of what he wanted. And so he wanted to get a new Land Rover Defender. He tried to talk to Jaguar Land Rover about, maybe licensing the tooling, maybe partnering with them on kind of a continuation of the original Defender. They said no. And he was just like, well, then I'll make my own.
I'm super rich. I'll make my own vehicle.
Yeah. If you've got billionaire bucks, this is probably the nicest way to spend that beyond like giving it to charity or giving it to Consumer Reports.
Yeah.
Hey, there's always
we're member supported. So they sketched it out in the pub. The pub was called the Grenadier. And so that's what they named the model. And then they bought the pub.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's like their home office.
Yeah.
Why not?
Main office.
So that's it. Yeah. I mean, and it was, like I said, it's designed, they're fully open and honest that this was designed to be a true off-road vehicle.
Yeah.
Obviously it's street legal and everything like that. But Ryan, producer Dave told me that you were champing at the bit. Is it champing at the bit or chomping on the bit?
I think it's chomping because a bit is a horse thing.
I think it's actually champing, and I will look that up. I'll ask artificial intelligence later for the answer to that.
No, I know horse people.
I know. I was
Ryan, chomping at the bit. Yes.
Okay. You really wanted to talk about this vehicle. I think you actually asked to be on this podcast. I have never asked to be on this podcast, not once. A lot of people have asked me to not be on this podcast. So tell us what it is about this type of vehicle that you love so much, because that's kind of a thing with you, right?
Well, I do have a love for square, boxy SUVs.
British?
It doesn't matter where it comes from, but it has a personality. And we talked about other podcasts. We talk about something fun car. When it has a personality, I don't care how impractical it might be or what, because today all the cars are the same. And like, this is something different. Yeah. And they were brutally honest with us from the minute they got here. When they brought us this car to check out. Like, this thing is not. It's for off road, And when you design something for off road or one thing specifically, it does that one thing well. It does going to give up other things very severely.
And we're going to talk about
this
that.
thing does,
Yeah.
right? But that being said, I love it. I mean, years ago, I got to drive a G-Wagon for the first time. We used to go to the
Mercedes-Benz G-Wagon,
International Motor Press Association days. I got to drive all these fun cars, and I always loved the look of it. I never drove. I drove, and I was like, this thing is actually it's borderline horrible on the road, but it's so capable. We get to drive it off road is amazing. Range Rovers, some of these overlanding like boxy. Vehicles that have now become status symbols, unfortunately, I look at. I mean, these things has 3 locking differentials on the dashboard, and nobody drives it on. It's on asphalt its entire life, right? So this is cool because this isn't as posh. It's not as fancy inside. It's a little more utilitarian, but it has all that same stuff, and even a little more extreme, I would say. And they just put a lot. We'll get into it, but they put a lot of effort into just. It's an off-road vehicle that people might have somewhere in the world where like you don't have the parts to fix it or something. So they kept things simple. They use an engine that's popular and common around the world. Just all kinds of little design things. Like I said, we'll get into it a little more, but I love honestly getting in and out of this thing. It was like for me, almost a nightmare because it's like not easy to get in and out of. But I still every time I got in it, once I got in, I was so excited to drive it.
Right.
But yeah, it's just one of those things. I like off-roady vehicles that are boxy and different. And this is the story behind it. Like you're just explaining the whole pub thing, and basically no one would help them out, so they said, "The hell with you, we're going to do it ourselves." That's kind of a funny story, right?
Absolutely.
And yeah, I don't know. I think. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about it.
And you kind of gravitate toward off the beaten path vehicles too, right, Steph? Is that fair to say?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
so this vehicle spoke to you as well, right?
I never grew out of playing in the dirt. So all of these off-roaders, and especially when they're so purpose-built, I was excited. I was like, and there's buttons. I know I always talk about, and there's buttons. But yeah, I was just like, you finally let me drive something I like.
Yeah. You've been. It's been tough to keep her happy here since she started. She hasn't,
and it's because of what I said before.
We
cars
drive
are all the same. Everything's like a RAV4 or a Highlander, and like they're all just slightly different than that.
Right.
But they all drive the same. It's very like, and I say the same. They're not exactly the same, which is why we do what we do. But compared to this, radically different. Like this thing is like it's like driving a farm equipment.
So let's start with what it's best at, which is off road. Now we all drove it up our famous Consumer Reports Rock Hill, and I know Steph took it on some dirt roads, and I took it on some dirt roads. So let's talk about that. Ryan, do you want to start with? Yeah. So how did it go up the Rock Hill? Usually a pretty big test for a vehicle.
I've been up the Rock Hill many times in my time here. Lots of good vehicles. Some struggle. This was probably one of the best, maybe the best. And I'm talking like even like we had an H1 Hummer at one point. We had like all the crazy stuff. G-Wagon. Yeah. This has all-terrain tires on it, aggressive all-terrain tires on it. So I think that helped. But it went up it like effortlessly. Like it was kind of a joke. I mean, there's some. Well, you're probably watching the footage right now. Totally put up. Totally my film, but it like. Eat with ease. I went up a couple dirt roads around here. Nothing too crazy. Yeah. Even though they did tell us when they were here, like take this thing, like take it off road. Don't be afraid. And I was kind of joking, like, well, don't tell us that because we don't need to break this thing. But he encouraged taking this thing off.
It is funny though because it being $90,000, you do think about, even though it's for off road, still in your mind you're like, I don't really want to hurt a $90,000 vehicle, and that actually happened to you, right? Like you were on one of our local dirt roads, and you turned around because you were worried about scratching it, right?
Well, because it's not.
I just plowed through,
right? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If it was mine, I would have been like, add pinstripes. It's perfect. If it doesn't have trail pinstripes, then you're doing it wrong. But since it wasn't our car, and I'm a lot newer here than y'all, so I don't want to be that person.
So I took it on. We have 2 or 3 really kind of aggressive dirt roads that have a lot of embedded rock, and I took it at night just because I was coming back from dinner, and my girlfriend was with me, and I entered one of them at such a high rate of speed, and being dark, she didn't know where I was going and what, because I just turned off the paved road all of a sudden and just entered this dirt road like 40, 45 miles an hour, and the thing doesn't care. It does not care. Like embedded rocks, potholes, does not phase it. I've never driven a vehicle on these roads that cared so little about what it was. Now, again, they say it's for under 5 miles an hour, but it does great on rough stuff at any speed. I was just really impressed with how little you felt like in most cars for sure, but even most off-roady vehicles, you would feel some of these big rocks and like braking bumps and potholes and mud pits and everything that you're going through. But this thing just really doesn't. It just doesn't care. It's unfazed by it, and no kickbacks through the steering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it was funny on the Rock Hill because a bunch of us took it up there, and I just kind of let it idle for most of it, and really just nothing. But everybody who tried to like give it gas and low gear with the diff lock, it's like you're just spinning your wheels. It doesn't need that. It just does the thing effortlessly.
If you lock all the differentials, because you can lock the center and then the two front and rears up above on this awesome panel that it looks like you're in an old airplane. It's when you lock it all up solid like that, it's unstoppable.
There is a weird sequence though. I was going to talk about that. Let's get into that because they actually left a cheat sheet in the vehicle for how to get into this. And I did
not find that cheat sheet, so it took me a minute.
Yeah, and several of us like Dumbo over here, I had the cheat sheet, and I still if you don't do the sequence just right, it won't engage the locking differentials. You're like, why is it just? But it doesn't. Flashing?
There is a sequence to it. Yeah, yeah.
So
and it involves and it's so mechanical that it does involve like actually rolling a little bit so that it clicks into gear because I'm pretty sure it's like a direct like locker, like it's an actual pin dropping in.
I mean the center, like to put it in low gear and to put it into to lock the center diff, it's a physical knob, but the front and rear, which that's an option, part of the rough pack I think that was added onto our car. To use those, that's in the kind of airplane panel above, but the one is like super duper mechanical and the other one has a little help.
It's just the one that the shifting it to low gear is simple. It's obvious like any other vehicle that you shift to low gear, but it's those engaging the differentials. You have to do it in a certain order,
right?
And if you don't, whereas like my Tacoma, I just press rear locking diff and I'm good to go. I don't have to do anything weird.
I would argue though today that putting it in low range is not like this thing. This is actually connected to a transfer case. You can feel it. It's mechanical. It's like maybe 20 years ago, like if you had a pickup truck that had the shifter on the floor.
That's what mine has. Yeah, that's what mine has.
But today, not everything's a button, right? So I thought that was.
But I'm saying I don't have to do anything goofy. I put it in low range. Yeah. I hit my rear differential lock, and I'm good. Not all this goofy, like if you don't do it in the right order, you have to start over again. Right. Well, I found that a little bit annoying, but I'm sure as an owner, once I understood the sequence, it wouldn't be a problem.
And I'm sure there's a reason for it inside of how they designed it.
Yeah. I mean, that I kind of like that it's so mechanical because, there are ones where now you can even disconnect the sway bars with a button to get more articulation. And everything's so, computerized. Well, if you're using this thing as intended, if you're going way off the beaten path, if you're, they designed so much of this around repairability. And that's really refreshing at a time where a lot of car companies are seeking to kind of gatekeep that, fight against right to repair laws. And this one's like, no, even the frame is not galvanized, so you can weld it on the side of the road.
I thought that was interesting. The upper half is galvanized for rust prevention, and the bottom half not, in case you had to, weld this thing if you're in the Arctic Circle somewhere doing, off the beaten path. And that's they put a lot of effort into that kind of stuff.
Fix it with a hammer. It's great.
So let's talk about the powertrain because I think it's kind of interesting. A very serious off-road vehicle, yet it has this BMW turbo inline six, which of course it's an awesome powertrain. It's an awesome power. I can see why they chose it. Steph, what did you think about it?
I thought it was pretty smooth. I mean, obviously it's turbocharged, so you do get a little more power, but it didn't have that like annoying kick that would like get in the way of
kick? What kind of kick?
Well, like when boost comes, turbo lag,
Well, the BMW engine doesn't have that. So
it's almost like it's supercharged. It has power linear right from the beginning, which is perfect for an off-road vehicle like this, right?
Yeah,
I thought it moved. I mean, it doesn't even have 300 horsepower, and this is a heavy vehicle. And I thought it actually moved down the road pretty darn good for such a heavy vehicle. Like when you really would it goes.
Yeah. I mean, they detuned the horsepower a little bit to give it more torque, which that's what I want in an off-roader.
Yeah, no, I was pleased with it and thought it shifted fairly smooth. I mean, there's so much other stuff going on that you're like just a super smooth shifting transmission, and something like this is not really a priority.
Yeah,
because there's so much, But I thought it's a fairly smart idea. I mean, he said if you're somewhere in the world and you need a part, like you can get a part for this. If they had to build and design and build their own engine and get it up to some reasonable amount of reliability inside of that many years, it was never happened, right? Yeah. So. Why not? And that's sort of what they did with a lot of the other parts on this thing. They use Recaro. There's all kinds of other like main good brands that are components on this thing.
Very good components. I thought it sounded good too. Like, it doesn't really sound like a BMW. They did a really nice job tuning the exhaust so it sounds a little bit trucky. Yeah. And yet, especially if you roll the windows down, you can hear the turbo whistle, and it just sounds. Has a really good note to it without being obnoxious. We've certainly had some like we had what was a 4Runner. That
oh god, with the snorkel,
with the snorkel, that thing was kind of obnoxious. This is not like that at all. So I thought that was really good. What else really stood out to you guys, good or bad, about this vehicle?
I mean, I wish it came with something that's so manual and every other. I know they were like, we don't have any plans to put a third pedal, but it would have been so nice.
Meaning a manual transmission.
A manual transmission, yeah. I mean, that ZF 8-speed that's in there, it's everywhere. You can find parts for it, I'm sure. But also, I'd really have liked. It does hold a gear pretty well, though. I mean,
it is kind of funny because that shifter or the transmissions, common, they use the same shifter. Like
okay, that's kind of hilarious.
Straight out of
kind
a Z4.
of comical, right? So you get in and it's like very utilitarian, like just panels and switches, big toggle switches, and the knob for the transfer case is like looks like it belongs. Yeah. And then there's like a BMW shifter, like straight out of an X5 or whatever, 3 Series, whatever. And it's just, it doesn't bother me, but it's also a little bit like, oh, okay. But they also didn't like try to reinvent the wheel there. They just let it be because it works, right? Yeah. So, but it's pretty funny at first.
It is funny that it's such a unique interior in every way except for that one thing.
That one thing.
I mean, I think in the end, probably most owners aren't going to care, but it almost seems like, okay, so what? Would it cost an extra? Would you have to tack on an extra $1,000 to have a shifter that looks more similar to the transfer case, And then I think a lot of their owners, when it's this expensive, they probably wouldn't care. But when you start, when you design a vehicle from scratch like they did, you have to look at every single bit of cost, and you look at this will be unique and that'll be unique and they're probably like, you know what, this is why mess with it, it's already there, it works,
you can get
I get it
for it, whatever. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But some negative things, I'll just jump in, I guess.
Talk to us.
So the first thing I noticed, first thing you notice is when you go to get in this thing, especially if you're a taller guy, I had to get in and like tuck my knee under the steering column because the floor is high, and the door opening is really not that big, so like it's actually quite awkward. And I had it for a night, and I was like, I jumped in and out of it for, half a dozen times. It's like, wow, if I had this every day, it'd probably drive me nuts, right? And the seat was manual, right? So the seat doesn't even do like the thing that like moves out, what do they call that when it moves out of the way for you?
Like
none of that because it's mechanical, which is fine. Once I'm in it, it's okay. It's snug. The driving position is kind of snug. You're up high. I could have used more headroom, but you're up nice and high. You can see the corners. Frontward visibility is great. Out the back is not so great.
Out the back.
Well, they did this. They have this unique way that the rear door.
It's a 2/3 split sort of setup.
Yeah.
And so what that does is, I understand the utility aspect of that, right? But in the reality, it means that what you're looking through in the rearview mirror is super skewed, and you really can't see much of anything.
No, there's a huge pillar in the center, just offset.
Yeah. And then, you've got the tire mounted
the spare
on the back
tire.
too.
Yeah.
And they explained when they were here, like if you're parked somewhere snug and you want to open the back doors, it's not a full door swinging out, so it buys you some room, which I get, but I don't know if it was worth sacrificing visibility. Like it's pretty tough because there was a ladder on the back, right? Didn't you crop on the roof?
No, Mike Quincy did. Mike Quincy was jumping around on the roof like an idiot.
They told us to. They were like, "Go up."
He's not an idiot.
Because it was super rigid. Like it's meant for this is one of those things for people to tent up there and go camping or whatever, right?
We were worried about him. We were worried about him falling off though. He is older. He is older. Anyway, okay, so. Let's talk about one of the things that I think maybe is going to catch the most new owners off guard, and that's the steering.
Yeah.
I mean, the steering.
There's a couple
is-
things about the steering.
There's several
bless
things about the steering. Do you want to start it off, Ryan? Because I've never felt steering quite like this before.
So again, the first time I got in it, I took off, and at low speeds, you don't notice what you're going to talk about, or we're going to bring up in a minute, but the turning radius is actually really not good. Which
For
is
an off-road vehicle,
surprising, 'cause
that's really weird.
I learned about this
Yeah.
even harder when I went down one of the dirt roads. Because I turned around at one point because it was a big mud pit, and I didn't have the time to figure out.
Oh, I went right through it.
Did you go through it?
Yeah,
How
I'm
deep was it?
I'm such a jerk.
Was it dirt? Was that real deep? That one?
I
How
should-
deep?
It
More
wasn't.
of a
It wasn't crazy
apparently.
deep,
Okay.
but it
It
was
looked
very
deep.
green. It was very green.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
went
You
through the
were
green
doing it
one.
as
I went through
service.
super slowly, and then all the other ones I went through fast because I knew I was giving it to Mike Quincy the next night. So I wanted him to have the vehicle have like a nice patina of dirt all over it. So
that's
I
who
did him a
Mm-hmm.
favor.
I wish I did go through. I didn't have time, and I was just like, so I.
Anyway, so you turned
I turned
around.
around, and it was like Austin Powers in the hallway trying to turn around.
Exactly what that-
because
Oh,
in that
yeah.
tunnel, tight area,
In that
but
tunnel,
you'd expect it to turn. And the test I have is for years. I've been here for long enough. There's a park. You park along the edge over there by the lunchroom. Especially when my office was in here, I'd always park over there. And if you can turn around before the hedges, you got a decent turning radius car. This thing does not even come close.
Oh, yeah, no.
You know what I mean? Like if you just do a U-turn right there, you
Right.
can do it before the hedges. That's like my official test.
And for an off-road vehicle, that's
you'd
a
think
little
it'd
weird
have a little
because
more,
there's
yeah.
going to be times where you are going to have to turn around on
And
the trail.
Some of that has to do with the off-road, the axles that are on it, and so I'm not completely.
But there's
trashing it,
more to it.
Yes.
Let's talk about the actual. Well, the steering's very heavy at low speeds,
Yes.
but that's and like really heavy,
Very, very heavy,
But that's not the weirdest thing about the steering at all. Talk to us about that.
So most vehicles, when you go around a turn and you kind of let go, you can like ease up on the steering wheel as the car straightens out. It should kind of go back to center.
Right.
You know, they're
Self-centering.
caster,
Yeah.
like the vehicle's the suspension geometry like makes the wheels come back caster, right? It doesn't come back to center. It like comes back and it kind of just quits.
Yeah.
And you're helping it
You
back
have
to
to
center.
help it. You
which
have
is
to help
very
the
awkward.
steering.
It is very awkward when you are just used to driving normal cars that do that. Like that's a
Yeah.
natural thing, right? And you have to literally help it back.
100%. And
there's
you have to
times-
remember that you're going to have to help
because
it
there are
back.
times where like there's the little rotaries in town. I came out of them and like I'm still going the wrong way. I'm like, oh my goodness, you have to literally help it back.
Yeah.
Did you find that? I assume you found that very strange as well.
Yeah, and there's like a little dead spot in the middle, and
There is
I
a
don't know.
dead
It's
spot,
it's
yeah.
a little weird. I did appreciate that it was a pretty slow ratio though, because that's what I want. I mean,
Yeah, for that,
yeah.
I agree. But it's
And it's funny because you're going down the highway,
precise
and
ways.
because it's so dead on center, it wanders, right? And so what happens is it starts wandering, and then when you have to pull it back,
go?
you have to turn it much further back than you thought you were going to have to turn it back.
I mean, it is a box
Yeah.
on wheels,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
let's the aerodynamics aren't helping us out either there. But
And I don't think I've ever felt steering this dead in my life. As far as the feel and feedback that you're getting through on the road, it's just super dead.
I will say when was going up the rock hill, I was getting the information I needed to know where the tires.
Again, that's the
And that's
point.
what it's for,
It's
right?
off-road.
Right. Let's just
Yeah.
give them credit for that. But yeah, for regular road driving, it's different. It's very different. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the controls real quick because I feel like that's a big thing to you, right? Physical controls.
oh yeah.
So do you want to tell us a
These
little bit
are, like,
about them
extra-
and talk to us
extra
about the
physical.
airplane
Oh.
effect and all that? Do you want to just talk a little bit about?
Yeah, sure,
Did you like
sure.
them? Did you not like them? Or
I like them, but they could be better.
Yeah.
Lots of buttons, lots of big buttons. They're all, kind of sealed off. There's a little bit of give in a lot of the switches and stuff. And they said that was, because they're sealed to keep water out if you go through splashes and have the little Safari windows open
or
on the roof.
you can hose the whole interior down. That was
Yeah.
part of the thing that they want you to be able to feel comfortable
there's
hosing
grid
it down.
lugs, yeah.
Under a certain point, but still obnoxiously, like you could hose the inside of the thing
Yeah.
out. Right?
Yeah. And so, you have this like almost airplane cockpit looking effect. But the only thing is, some of the like layout of the buttons could have made a little more logical sense. But, for most of the things, you can just slap the thing, turn the thing. And detents could have been a little more obvious on some of the knobs. There could have also been a bit more like variation in color. Because, it's cool to see this wall of buttons, but, I want to know that I'm grabbing towards, temperature, fan speed at a glance.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
the
that's a
fan
good
speed's
point.
really weird. Like it only has a few like choices anyway, but you have to turn it so far to go from like 1 to 2 and 2 to 3, and it's super weak detent, so it just feels super odd.
Did you when he was explaining like they made some upgrades, and one of them was like the HVAC, and he's like, well, yeah, we went from three fan speeds to 5, and I was like, oh wow, what a gift. You know, so
but
the knob
it's so
itself is
weird
awkward.
that the fan speed is super weak detents and and super long. You know, that you have to turn it between each setting, but the temperature one has much more defined detent. So it's weird that they aren't the same. It's just strange.
You think they almost got balanced.
Yeah.
I will say it's better than some swipe thing. At least
for sure.
knob.
Oh
for sure.
my
Yeah.
gosh, yes. Yeah. Well, and that's one of the issues I had with, speaking of swipes and things. I mean, to their credit, that you do get kind of the BMW iDrive style. Mazda kind of did the same thing with the knob that you can use because the actual touchscreen is like way up here for me and kind of out of reach. But so volume was the other one that was like that. There was a huge difference in each step, and
too much.
Too much.
Too much.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of things that were kind of afterthoughts like that, like the stereo, terrible XM radio reception, probably the worst I think I've had. A lot of the like safety items were tucked, like you could still whack a button and turn off start stop. Great.
I like that. Yeah.
But if you want to turn off lane keep assist, well, it's in an on-screen menu. The menus are pretty logical. There's minimal stuff they shoved onto the screen, but it also didn't remember your settings aside from.
You'd have to do it each time you started back up.
Yeah. I keep going back to them. The gentleman that brought it to, they debriefed us on it before we got to start crawling all over the roof and stuff. But they were, he was like, we didn't have to have a screen legally because of the backup camera or whatever. There wouldn't have been a screen in this thing, which is like, I love that. Right. But to your point, it was fairly simple, I thought, but the panel of buttons, because there's so many of them, and there's a lot of buttons that aren't in normal vehicles, like this off-road stuff. Right. There is a learning curve to knowing where some of these things are. Like I quickly learned where the stop start was. Yep. There is a learning curve to that. As much as we like the hard buttons, it's like there's probably too many for like a modern car, but I still like that, and I like the styling of them. I mean, they're kind of obnoxious, but big, and they give you four auxiliary switches that are pre-wired to areas of the vehicle where you can just put a light or whatever you want, and it's already there. Awesome. And which is kind of cool. I like that.
You know what I liked? I liked that it has a key fob holder slot on the dashboard. Where you take the key and you put it in and you turn it. It's amazing. And now the fob isn't rolling around in the cup holders.
I love that.
Me too. I think it's fantastic.
Back.
The only thing I didn't like about that, though, is that back to the days of the key dragging on my knee. Dangling on my knee. So I had to take all the stuff off of it. But
tall guy problems. Like we really want to discuss that, right? Anyway, since we're sort of on doing the interior, let's talk about the driving position because there's some quirkiness. I know I had plenty of headroom. I thought like I said, I liked those overhead windows. They made the cabin more airy, and I like the upright driving position, well-positioned dead pedal. But there's some armrest issues. Do you want to talk about that, Stef? Did you notice that? Like how there really isn't a left and outer armrest. Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing I do with my Volkswagen. I could pop my...
But he's Mr. Symmetrical. It's got to be symmetrical.
Yeah, I know.
I need symmetrical. So you're like this. But actually, because you're on the windowsill, which luckily is not as high up as most windowsills. Yeah. But then, so you're sort of like this. And because it's so wide, though, I didn't find it that bad for shorter drives. But I could see that being on a longer drive, I would definitely want some position that I wasn't up like this the whole time. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Does that make sense?
I feel like it was really made to like hop in and out and look at your line and this because like on a longer drive, like I took it up in the mountains in Massachusetts to goof around, and the seat back is so flat. Like I don't use the armrest as much. They're just usually kind of in weird locations for me. Sorry, Mr. Symmetrical.
It's okay.
But yeah.
If you're asymmetrical, you're asymmetrical. It's all right.
But I was just like, man, there is no lumbar support on this thing.
Oh, so now we're talking about the seat.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
that's where I was going to go next
Yeah.
because I found. I mean, you had it for a weekend, so you were probably in it longer than I was, just a duration, like, for one drive. But I was in it for like an hour and change, maybe an hour, and the seats started to fall apart a little bit on me.
They're not the
comfort-wise.
best.
Yeah.
They're not great. Yeah,
And try adjusting that seat back.
yeah,
The lever's like way back here
Yeah, that was-
somewhere.
it's awkward.
It
yeah,
rotates backwards from how you'd expect. So
Yeah.
most, you pop it down.
Not, yeah.
This was like pull backwards for some reason.
Yeah, that took
I
a
have no
little
idea
bit
what
to
was
figure
going
And
on.
they're all manual seat adjustments. I actually don't care if that thing
Yeah.
wasn't so awkward. I wouldn't care. But several people said in the logbook,
They're
$90,000 and not even the driver's seat doesn't have power adjustments. But
Yeah. Well, if you go, the water comes in. These water shouldn't come in because the doors are double sealed. They have
Yeah.
two seals, so you can go through
They
whatever,
knew
how
we
much
were
water
gonna
they
do
said.
that.
But think about it. You don't want, if the water does get in, you don't want
Yeah.
power seats sitting in water, right?
Well,
so that's part of the reason.
What was
for sure.
interesting was we did have heated seats. So there is a plug under there. I guess in theory they could add power seats, but I wouldn't really
That's true.
want them.
the other thing is the steering wheel just doesn't tilt down enough. So it's
Yeah,
like in this
same.
bus-like position. Even at its lowest, it's kind of weird.
I've noticed that too.
Okay, let's talk about noise. I wrote down noise. Steph,
noise.
go.
Wind noise, tire noise. You're forcing a big brick with a lot of I like that there's a lot of attachment points. Like there's, rails down the side of the car you can stick, fuel cans and whatever you want, but it makes a crap load of noise.
It's pushing a box to air. You just said it, yeah. And it's got aggressive tires on it. They're BFG KO2s, all-terrain tires. So these are like knobby. They're not designed to be quiet. They're designed to get you out of mud and stuff. So they're making some noise, and it's noisy. But I'll be honest, I didn't think it was terrible because considering what the vehicle is, I was expecting it to be kind of a little bit loud. So
I didn't think it was terrible either, except I noticed a couple of like there's this low frequency reverberation that I noticed in the
kind of
vehicle,
a foo-foo,
and it was so
foo-foo
funny. Like I couldn't even really figure out if it was tires, if it was powertrain, and Tanya hadn't noticed it. This is my girlfriend I'm talking about. And then once I told her, I said, "Listen for that. Can you hear that?" And then she couldn't unhear it for the rest of the drive, and she was mad at me because I told her about it. And also around 1700 to 2000 RPM, there's like a gritty vibration that you can feel through the steering wheel and the gas pedal. That's engine related. And then, like I said, there's lots of wind noise above 55 miles an hour, tons of wind noise, not to Wrangler levels, but
it wasn't that bad,
it's
but it's
going to be a noisy vehicle on a road trip. It's, on the highway, it's going to be a noisy vehicle. And then you'll even the powertrain at 70, it's there the whole time.
It is.
It's
You're
not obnoxious, but it's there.
So I noticed, and maybe you guys did too, regular road driving impacts, like bumps, have like a good amount of noise, like almost some cavity noise from the tire, maybe.
Yes,
but the
exactly.
suspension it was like kind of booming in the. And that was one of those things too. I started like paying attention to it, and then I couldn't unhear it.
Yeah.
So that's. But again, this thing is
it's a body and
truck.
frame.
Body and frame. Yeah, it's pretty.
And it handles like one.
Yeah,
It
so-
rides like one.
Okay.
Although not as much body roll as I expected.
It actually, I kind of agree with you. I thought it would be just like this roly-poly beast, and it really
it's pretty
the
flat,
on-road
considering,
handling
yeah.
was. If you take if the steering was you take that out of the equation, it's actually not that bad.
No, it
but the
really
steering kind of ruins the on-road handling. But I agree with you. The suspension-wise, in terms of body roll, and is not too bad.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there anything we've forgotten or?
No gauge pod.
Yeah, it's over here.
Pretty
It's
weird.
the speed
yeah.
is over here on
Speedometer's
the
on the
center.
central
And
screen.
that's annoying. That's no good.
I think they could have done something that
They have turn
wanted.
signals right here, and a couple other headlights and turn signals are
And
here.
warning lights.
Yeah.
If you turn off any of the safety systems like lane keep assist, well, I don't want that going off on a narrow country road. You get a warning like something's wrong, and I'm just like, oh, I know I turned it off. I don't really. What I'd like to see here is speed, maybe RPM, maybe
Agreed.
something related to the operation of the truck. And I know they said it was for better visibility out, but I think they still could have done
Something little, yeah.
yeah, or just like a bar like my mom's Oldsmobile had, like bring it back.
Yeah. That being said, I mean, you don't drive this thing very quickly anyway.
Yeah,
so it's not
well-
really a big issue, but it would be nice to have something there. Even I just like to see RPM and speed. Why not?
Me
right?
too.
So,
Me too.
yeah.
That'd be
All
nice.
right, so with everything we've talked about, the goods and the bads, are you guys spending $90,000 on this thing? Or is there something else that you're spending $90,000? Or is there two vehicles that you're buying for $90,000? Ryan, so let's start with you. What are you doing here? Are you buying this thing? Are you buying something else entirely, or what?
Well, there's a million scenarios, right? Am I extremely wealthy
Pick
and
one.
I can have a bunch of cars? Yeah, I'd buy one of these things.
Yeah.
As my only vehicle? No, I would not. I wouldn't. I'd buy like maybe a GX or something like
Lexus GX,
or something.
Yeah.
Well, this has some more road manners. I mean, you're driving this thing on road 90% of the time. Let's be real, right? However, if I did, you did live somewhere crazy and you needed something like this, I would, this thing would be cool.
Right.
I'd have to, there's just a lot of sacrifice though. Getting in and out of it is the biggest thing for me.
Yep.
And then, the rest of the little nuances we were talking about. But I love what they did with this thing. I think it's awesome. And every time I see one now, it's like cool because I got to drive it, so I can appreciate it a little more. So yeah, it's nice to see still making cars a little bit different. Right.
Steph, what about you? Are you buying this or?
I mean, what if I had a fifth car?
That's the thing, though. It wasn't your only vehicle. It's like, and you had a ton of money.
Here's a toy.
Is your own, every day? And one of the gentlemen they daily drive these things. I'm like, that could be tiring after a while.
Yeah. I mean, would want it. It's on depreciation watch. Hello. Yes.
I know. Have you seen any used ones? Like, have you looked? What do they go for?
I think they were in the 60s.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
Hopefully they depreciate a lot for us.
Yeah. But I like that they've emphasized repairability. Like, and they even said, like, we want to make this, unless we absolutely have to change it, we want to make this same vehicle for 30 years. They've licensed the powertrain components from BMW for like till 2030, so that's even going to be around a lot. Some of the updates that they've done have been in response to owner feedback. It's not just going in a black hole. So you're able to turn off the speed limit warning that they have to have for Europe that we don't have to have and that we find really, really annoying. It's the one setting on that like safety screen that actually latches. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe there's hope that they update the other things, in response to owner feedback. Would. Yeah. It's unique. It's, there's a bajillion like G-Wagons around and that kind of nicer off-road-ish space, cute retro vehicles. There's a bajillion Defenders out there, Range Rovers, whatever. And this is something unique. And a lot of people are like, what is that?
Yeah, I think, I enjoyed driving it, but I enjoy driving old trucky vehicles, right? Some of us enjoy that, but it is a lot in every way, right? It's expensive, it's inefficient, it's noisy, it's ergonomically odd, full of quirks that I think, let's be realistic, this is a luxury SUV. They can say it's off-road intended, whatever, but that's probably not who's buying it, right? Maybe, hopefully some are buying it, but the reality is if it isn't now, it probably will become some kind of a status symbol. And so I think it's important that people know what the vehicles really like to live with. And I'm gonna read a quote from the logbook from Maddie McCarty. Okay. So Maddie McCarty's on the podcast. Obviously, she's in charge of all of our ADAS testing, advanced driver assistance systems, and usability. And she's in all of our vehicles. She spends a lot of time in them. But she's not someone who, is a high performance driver, and she's not, doesn't love going off road necessarily. Those aren't her areas. But she said, I did not like driving this vehicle on the road at all. It feels unrefined and demanding in normal use, and I needed to adjust my driving more than I have in any other vehicle. I felt disconnected from the surroundings, especially because of the steering behavior, poor visibility, lack of blind spot warning, and unsettling ADAS intervention. The day-to-day experience was dominated by noise, effort, discomfort, and a lack of confidence. Now, I only say that as a caveat because we love driving this vehicle. Yeah. But we're not everybody, and it's important that your regular everyday person is looking for a little bit of a status symbol and something unique. You're not necessarily going to love driving this vehicle every day.
You're exactly right. She's right.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So, okay. Last question for Ryan.
I wanted. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I did appreciate this thing tows 7,000.
I think 7,000 or 7,700 or something. It tows a lot.
It tows, which I thought was
quite capable.
Which was something I would be like, well, that's pretty good. That's a good amount of weight, right? So sorry, just wanted to.
Now, one last thing before we move on, wrap this up. Ryan, I'm not going to hold you to it, but how would this fare if we tested it? How would you guess it would fare?
It would be bad.
Road test score wise, it would not be
We're looking
good,
at
right?
like Wrangler level.
Yeah. Because of all the compromises and quirks.
I mean, it starts with getting in the thing, right? Right off the bat. It's got a high floor. We talked about this. It's not going to do well. And we knew that. When we approached them, it was like, we're not really looking to test it. We want to know, so we can have information on it, just so people can come and read about it. And we just, like, we're nerds. We want to drive this.
And we wanted to have some fun. We wanted to have some fun. And we did. Like I said, I think most people really enjoy driving it, but there are some things to think about.
They did not build this to appease Consumer Reports.
Okay,
No. What makes it good off-road is what would make it bad in our test. Things like ride height and steering.
Yep.
So Stef is hard at work writing a first drive on this. That's going to be up on cr.org, consumerreports.org, so make sure you check that out. And with that, let's move on to our audience question of the week. And speaking of those questions, folks, don't forget the best place to send us your questions, comments, video clips is talkingcars@icloud.com. So, and then remember, if you send in such an awesome question that producer Dave Abrams chooses your question and we use it on the show, you will get sent some CR swag. I mean, which is pretty awesome.
It's a major life accomplishment.
What an incentive, right? And don't forget, we love those video questions. As Jen Stockberger used to say, no one believes me that she used to say that, but she used to say, doesn't that sound like Jen Stockberger? We love those video questions.
Love, yeah, she would say that.
Okay, so our question today is from Chaz in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. This is really interesting. Chaz says, I own a 2014 BMW 328D that I love, but it's starting to approach the end of its life due to repairs that would be needed to its emissions system. What are my options for offloading a car that won't pass emissions tests in many states and would cost far more to repair than it's worth? Stef, help Chaz out here. What's the answer?
You're probably going to want to, instead of trading in a new dealership, if you want to maximize how much money you'll get, you'll probably want to go to do a private sale, sell it on a BMW forum or Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, local classifieds, and just deal directly with the buyer because a lot of them don't care
about the issues that they're going to be dealing with.
What if I got a fifth car?
Well, wouldn't that be a sixth? Wouldn't that be sixth? I thought that the Grenadier was fifth. This is sixth.
Well, I might be able to afford this one first. But BMW, you sell it on a BMW forum, dudes might just have that part lying around.
There's got to be. Yeah. I would imagine, because that was a great car. I love that, the diesel of that car.
Yeah,
that was like an awesome
fun
setup.
car.
Right? There's got to be, I didn't look into this, but there's got to be like a little culty group out there that is into fixing these things up, or they know the cheats around it. There's always a way around things, right? So I would imagine like someone would be looking for that. Or you said, but private sales, you're obviously going to make the most, I would say. And it might even, if it's just parts, there's a lot of parts in that car that are probably still good too.
Yeah.
So,
I would figure out the exact problem. Or, you could always just say, as is, I'm having emissions issues, it won't pass inspection.
Right.
But,
Good
be
luck.
honest.
Just be honest. Yeah, just be honest.
But we have a used vehicle valuation tool on consumerreports.org. And I actually priced out the difference between trading it in, which, if you don't want to deal with the million, is this still available? Is this still available?
Oh, from private parties.
Ghost messages from random people. And you just want to, take the hit and trade it in. Well, depending on whether it classifies as rough or average, you'll get 2,100-ish to about 3,900-ish as a trade-in. Or if you go private party sale, it's about 4,350 to 6,200 is the range that it pulled up. So, I mean, you'll take a couple $1,000s in a hit if you do it as a trade-in, but then, that's basically the convenience fee there.
Yeah, trade-in's always like that way.
Yeah.
No matter what it is.
All right, so Chaz, hopefully that helps you out a little bit. That is going to do it for this episode. But before we go, we just, for those of you that don't know, Consumer Reports is a nonprofit organization. If you notice on our website, we don't have any ads. And unlike most automotive media outlets, we buy all of our own test vehicles, right? And that costs a lot of money. So we survive through subscriptions, through donations. And if you watch us on YouTube, we actually have a donate button. So you can give us a little, you can give us a lot. That'd be even better. But anything you do to help us means we can keep doing what we do, which is try to give you the most thorough and unbiased road tests of every vehicle that we can possibly test. So help us out if you can, and we really appreciate it. Now, that really is it for this episode. If you want to learn more about the topics and the vehicles we talked about, you can click on the links in the show notes. Don't forget to send us those questions, comments, videos to talkingcars@icloud.com. As always, this video was produced by Dave Abrams, and it was edited by Andrew Belize and Anatoly Shumsky. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see y'all next week.